Okay. Video. It's gonna be TORE0419. Okay. I think that's 60. Okay. All right, well, we'll just forget that then. Can't do that. Okay. There we go. Okay. Oh, Gary. Just getting ready here. Okay, well, I think I'll get started. I'm going to, I'm just going to talk about doing dream interpretation with dreams that, are real dreams. And hey, Gary, how's it going? Just going to talk about some dream interpretation, just some I've had. If you have one, we can go through it too, and the one thing I'm doing is, the way I do it is basically I have I used to do it through some type of with an analyst, and oh, Charles is here. There we go. Hey, Charles, how are you? How you doing, Charles?
Hey, how's it going?
Great. Yeah. Well, I'm just getting started here. I'm here with Charles and Gary. I know. I don't think you've met Charles yet, but he's got more dreams than anybody I've ever met. But
Yeah, I have an inexhaustible collection right now.
yes. Well, what I'm finding about the dream work I'm doing right now is as productive as it is ever been. I mean, but it's not productive necessarily in a good way. It's, I'm finding out how really radical the, the task of bringing the uncontents up is. There's Tim. Hey, Tim. How you doing?
Good.
Great.
I'm glad I was able to make it. I got all these other meetings.
Oh, I know. You're Mr. Busy. Well, anyway, I was just saying that, I've I've started a practice of doing dreams. I've amplified them for years, and kind of got a knack for it, but I'm just finding out that what the dreams are saying to me now is that they don't want you just to interpret them. They want you to find do something to recognize the task at hand. In other words, what is the reason? What is the task at hand? Okay. Well, what they're telling me is I'm living a false life. I'm living an artificial life. I'm living a life that is completely inauthentic, and that everything I'm doing is non-essential and is just frittering away, and there was one that and the great mother was telling me, of course she's just the one I talk to, is that she says that you don't have any idea how radical what you're doing is, and you're that it's just that what we're doing here requires, he says that you can see that the change asked of you is profoundly deep, profoundly radical, and starkly different from the life you've been leading. The deep figures of the depth are scornful of your way of being, which is false and artificial. There is nothing in it now that is strong enough for the next leg of the rebirth and the renewal. Your first forces of rebirth and renewal are diseased and eaten by the overvaluing of ego, of the inadequate primacy of the conscious attitude, which is so resistant to the profound depths that are coming up. And there's been a lot of experiences on this, but I'm just going to sort of finish with this, and then we can just take a dream and start amplifying it. But I normally, when I do my active imagination, it's just developed, and it's through what this Jeffrey Raff calls the felt sense. I mean, it's just a sense of something is occurring. Don't resist it. I mean, now there's two aspects of what I do. I do about 45 minutes of active imagination. 15 minutes are just meditation and visioning, and the other 30 minutes are just the written dialogues, of just asking questions and getting answers, so it's about 45 minutes. But I spent about 30 minutes before that, taking my dreams and sort of organizing them, and so that the topic of discussion normally is going to be a dream, Now, the reason I do this and why this is the way I interpret dreams is because it's so profound. It is just unbelievably profound. I mean, I think you get answers that you're not going to get from an analyst, through doing this. But it is something, of course, you've got to train yourself to do. And one of the things I learned is in the active imaginations, when you start out, nothing happens. I mean, you're just drifting, or it's just black. Well, the idea is to imagine you're going somewhere. Okay, you just imagine you're going somewhere, and you just follow. Okay, this is what it looks like. This is what it would look like if I was walking along the road, and okay, and so that's this felt sense, and then you imagine a being that you're going to see, they don't talk to you. Okay. Okay, so you put yourself in their place and then you talk to yourself, you know? So now you're going to play both sides, you know? I mean, so, you know, I come to the top of this ridge, you know, and I look out and there's the river valley and the forest that I go into. This is developed gradually. So I standing at the ridge, and then I imagine I'm the forest, and I'm seeing me standing at the ridge, and then I will tell myself something. You know, you standing at the ridge, we've been here for many, many eons, growing and growing, waiting and waiting for you, you know, to come, you know. And then I go down and I imagine I'm the trees that I'm passing, and I, you know, the tree. Do the trees have anything to say? Well, imagine you're the tree and you're watching yourself walking down the hill towards the river, and what would the tree say to you? Just imagine it. That, you know, try to see yourself as you're walking down and that you're a tree, and what does the tree say, you know? And then I go down and I see the you know, the river, and this is the woman that tends the woodpeckers as the gatekeeper. So I pretend I'm a woodpecker and I see myself, and what does the woodpecker say and what does the great mother say? So I mean, this is the way to, when you're visioning, to sort of develop that, you know. And after a while, every once in a while there's this sudden deepening, you know. I say the river, see the river flowing, what is the, I'm the river, and I see me standing at the bank, what does the river say, you know? And then I'd fall into the river, and then I'm the water speaking to me that's enclosed me, you know. So I mean, that's a very powerful method of visioning if at the beginning you're not very good at visioning. I mean, it's you know, it works on several levels. Okay, well, anyway, so this morning I you know, come to the ridge, except I'm floating in air and I can't come down, and it was a little bit disturbing, you know. So the only thing I could think of to do was to call for the anima. You know, I called for the anima, and suddenly the felt sense. See, now that was a felt sense that I was absolutely floating and I was not on the ground and I couldn't descend. I mean, this was just something you just feel. It's not really, and this is what this active imagination is. And you know, and so then I finally, the anima comes and I sort of float down, you know. But it's quite a shock, really, you know. But the dreams have been kind of shocking lately, and you know, the one that was really pretty shocking was that there was well, all of them been pretty shocking, you know. But there was you know, people's in cars came, you know, and they just looked at me, and it was in the house of my childhood. And then I went into the house and left, and then I came out, and there were puppies that greeted me, except that they were eaten away. They had big holes in them, you know, and yet they were very affectionate. And then the mother dog was there, and then I look out, and there's mounds of dirt everywhere, and there's a car on top of each mound of earth. But on one that my car was on, it had totally burnt the car to the ground, you know. And then someone comes up and tells me that this is what they did instead of killing you. What they really wanted to do was kill you, you know. Instead, they burnt your car. So, I mean, this is an object, is what the Great Mother was saying, that you can see. This is what she said after the change of you. The change asked of you is deep, profoundly radical, and starkly different. The deep figures to the depths are scornful of your way of being, which is false and artificial. There is nothing in it that is strong enough for the next leg of the rebirth and renewal. Your forces of rebirth and renewal are diseased and eaten, the puppies. This is the instincts. This is the
So,
instinctual.
Craig, I'm sorry, that's what you figured out after the analysis, or that was something that you got during?
Well, this was just like in the last week or so. So I mean, I stopped analysis a couple years ago.
No, I meant when you were doing your own analysis.
Oh, yes.
Or was that during your active imagination?
Okay, well, the first 15 minutes was this, sense of that, that I am a being who is not connected with the deep ground. And I have no way of connecting with the deep ground. The only way I can possibly connect with the deep ground is through the gravity of the feminine and the anima. When she joins hands with me, I can sink down to the deep ground. But
so that kind of played into your anima.
Yes,
in the anima to come down to the earth.
Yeah, the diseased puppies, the diseased instincts, and then the artificial ways of conveyance. They're put on almost a funeral pyre of earth, again, the grounded earth, and waiting to be burnt. And this is just a sign that this artificial conveyance is not adequate. Now what is asked, what's the next thing? This is what I don't know. This is what I was thinking about this morning is well, that was actually my next question was, okay, where's this leading? I don't know. So, it remains to be seen.
It's kind of strange too. I shouldn't even interject this, but a car, that's kind of a, really material aspect of us. So maybe that's like, material aspect of yourself that has to be.
It's a shell of the ego.
Yeah.
It's kind of a shell of your mode of conveyance in the world.
Right.
It's just this shell, and it's burn away. And now I don't know. These are introducing me, and this has just been lately, to something that needs to change profoundly. What is the task that's to be performed? Now, I don't know what the answer to that is right now. I really don't. I'm going to have to. I don't know what, but I think the issue that the dream is telling me basically is that only through the feminine can you be grounded. Only through eros can you be grounded. Only through relatedness. And then I had a dream right after this. This was an amazing dream too. There was a woman that I corresponded with about 20 years ago. She was like a Ukrainian woman. And I was actually thinking about, it was sort of a love letters going back and forth. But when she wanted it to be consummated, I suddenly disappeared. So now I'm at the house of my mother's brother. So this is the house of feminine eros. It's my mother's brother, and she's there, and she's got all my letters with her, and she's making photocopies, and she's mocking me, about my and then the anima I have is sleeping, and I have no relatedness to her at all. I keep trying to wake her up, and she won't wake up. She's in a fetal position, and so, finally this car of a bunch of young people drives up. So I thought, this is my way to, this is a distraction and I can leave. And somebody says, we need something to write with. And this Russian or Ukrainian woman yells out, use pen and ink. She says, use pen and ink, Craig. You know, use pen and ink. I mean, she's mocking me. In other words, I really don't experience the depths of Eros. Everything is in pen and ink. And that's all she ever got from me. You know, so she says, use pen and ink. Use pen and ink.
It's interesting that you mentioned, that it was going to be consummated, it kind of all just went whatever direction. But that almost, is there any possibility that she could have represented the shadow in that dream?
She would be, I called her the accusing anima, the accusing feminine, the accusing eros. I mean, in other words, is mocking me and pointing out that I'm all pen and ink. There is nothing authentic about
Okay, I got it.
what I'm saying to anyone, especially to her, So anyway, I mean, this is I like these things, I like if you really get into these things, if they're not humbling, then they're not working. I mean, the only way of I think of this magical thing happening, which is, a dialogue between you and the depths, and think how really primordial these depths are. I mean, this is they say, Craig, we've seen many of you come and go. You're just another one of them, and don't waste our time. If you're not going to do the work, we see people like you come and go all the time, and either do it or don't do it. But I mean, this is really what, I have this group of 3 women, and then the very mysterious Lord Hermes. And every time I talk to him, he's very austere. And he tells me, he's usually the voice of the river, the flowing unconscious. And he says, you're not ready to talk to me. Don't bother me. I don't suffer fools gladly.
Hermes, the god of the boundary.
Yeah, and well, he's also is the philosopher's stone. He's the mediator between the 2 worlds. And he's actually in alchemy, he's called the Salvator Macrocosmi. So he is the son of the great world, and he's the savior or the redeemer of the great world. And Christ, his brother of light, is the Salvator Microcosmi. He's the Lord of the upper worlds. But the Hermes is he's the devil. He's the Holy Spirit. He's the feminine, and he's the deity. I mean, he's got everything, So anyway, I mean, I guess the whole thing is, if you guys have any dreams, we can go through them. But the one thing I've learned here, and I am not very good at confronting my shadow, and like they say, you can't really ever integrate your shadow. The only thing you can do is confront it, or outgrow it, because you don't want to really integrate your shadow. I mean, you want to be conscious of it, and that means confront it.
Well, that's kind of an interesting question, though. I know, Jung, he talked about, sometimes people have problems that, really he simply could not fix. But then if the people changed, then the new person, the problem no longer really applied, because they were kind of like a different being almost.
Well, it's still there, but you've outgrown it a little bit. I don't think that's one thing I'm I guess right now what I'm doing is is I'm just at I think an exciting hiatus or exciting thing because you know, I really like this active imagination of being the other and seeing you as a separate entity and then talking to you. You know, I just think this has been very powerful to me. You know, it's at least in just that 15 minutes of the visioning I do, you know, but I think that's really has stimulated a lot of these very powerful. Oh, and there was one other thing, and then if you guys have any other dreams, it's but there was this this anima that I was living with, and I think I've told a little bit of this, where she was collecting a bag of everything I threw away, and she had a garbage sack that was just bursting, you know, with the things, my refuse, you know.
Hey, you talked about that last week.
Yes, and so it's the unconscious contents, the dreams that I'm not bringing up, and so, you know, based on that, you know, I tried to bring some dreams up, you know, this, and see, then I'm not grounded, and I'm living in a world of mud, you know, where it's the prima materia and the water of life are all mixed up. There's no, and she tends it, and it's very fascinating to me, this garbage, you know. So you know, basically these were the unopened letters of dreams that I have not developed, and then I find these very boring dreams. So I say, okay, well, I'm going to go back over these dreams I didn't do anything with and try to, you know, they're apparently thought to be valuable. And since then, I've found like 3 or 4 just unbelievably productive dreams that I had just discarded in the last 3 or 4 weeks. You know, so and that's why I say, if you even have some seemingly boring dream, you know, if you guys have any that you ever want to work with, I mean, I'd like, you know, if you guys could bring a dream or something that you're not afraid to share.
I've got one I can share with us.
Yeah, great. Let's do it.
Okay. This is called the Turtle Estate.
Okay, go ahead. I'm going to just make some notes here.
I explained to a friend that we're on a grand estate of a wealthy, weird man who has many grand buildings stretched over a great area, but there's only one where normal people live, and another that serves as a kind of guest house in which some people can stay, but no one can explore the house or upgrade anything. I'm in a garden with some others looking at these beautiful turtles poking their snouts out of the pond. Just beyond are some large tortoises that have these massive growths coming out of their heads that look like great mushrooms. They are so still that you could mistake them for plants. In fact, they look like the trees beyond them. It's almost dinner time, and we are slowly drawing toward the house. I see that there's a man who is sleeping in a kind of shell that seems to be maybe one of the mushrooms. I reach down and tenderly touch his face, and he blinks awake, more alive than I would have expected. He jumps up and starts telling me about this place. He talks about another pond with other turtles and mentions that at this other pond, they're not quite as healthy, probably because of the oil-rich ground. Something that he hopes to take advantage of one day. Like he's going to drill for the oil and sell it. And I'm thinking to myself, by then, I hope there is no market for oil.
Well, now that is a rich, rich dream. I mean, this
Yeah,
is
it really is.
yeah. Now, one of the things you said last time, Tim, is that you like to look at the whole dream, and otherwise it's too tedious to go through. You don't ever get the nuggets out of it unless each image of that is amplified. So I mean, I'm serious about that too, even though it's very, very tedious, boring, monotonous work. The probably the gold in this dream is going to be where we least expect to find it.
Huh.
So you have to go through each image, and I mean, we can go through them really quickly if you want to. I mean, like, you're at a grand estate, so this is something of like a not a normal place. This is a place of where extraordinary things happen. Could be like the Grail Forest, or you could be like, you know, something to do with non-ordinary reality, you know. And then there is a wealthy and a weird man. Well, that's going to be your Merlin figure. That's going to be somewhat of a mysterious wizard-like being who owns the estate, by the way, owns the estate. I'm always in these houses that I don't know who owns it. Well, who owns it? You're not the master in your own house. Somebody else owns it, but you're living there. Who owns it? I mean, that's a really neat question. So then you have seven. So there's some houses where non-normal people live, and then there's some houses where normal people live. Is that right?
Uh,
You had some houses where people who were not normal lived, and then
well,
another.
there seems to me there's two houses,
Mhm.
at least two, but I'm thinking of these two, and one of them is like it's calcified. It's not. People can go into it, but they can't change anything. They can't explore anything.
Yes.
And the other
So
one is where the dinner is
frozen.
going to be.
The other
And that
one's what?
is where the dinner is going to be.
Oh, where the
And
dinner is going to be served.
and
Yeah.
that's a little more,
Warmer. It's a
yeah,
little warmer.
yeah.
Yeah. So one aspect of the of the palaces in there are some are calcified and frozen, so they would tend to be something like some aspect of ourselves that is rigid and unchanging, and for that reason it's undesirable. There's an aspect of ourselves that is not subject to transformation. It's calcified and frozen. So what would that be? That tends to be what the great mother told me. There's parts of you that are so resistant to this work that I don't know how it's ever going to happen. You're resistant. So and the conscious attitude always resistant to this because it's so unfamiliar with you know developing a third center of awareness, which is going to be now the informing center, not the center of the ego, which is always in charge, always in command. It's got all the plans and the big ideas of what happens next. So anyway, but there is a warmer place. So that is a place of possibility. It's a kind of an eros place. And then no one can explain what? You said no one can explain something. I don't remember what it was. No one can explain. Did you say something about no one can explain something?
No one can.
Anyway, never mind about that. So now
Oh,
let's go. Go ahead.
well, just a calcified house. No one can
Oh,
explore the
no
house,
one can explore the calcified houses.
or
Now that's some.
upgrading. Yeah.
See, now that's something I would want to explore further. I don't think let's not do it right now, but I would really want. What are the houses that you can explore? Okay, whenever there's a fairy tale, they tell somebody, you can go into any room in the house, but not that one. You can't go in that one. Of course, that's the first one you go into, and that's where the transformation can occur. And this is the door to the inner world, but you can't go in it. And of course, that's the one you need to go to. So the ones that no one can explore, like Spider Woman tells the twin brothers who are looking for their father, go in any direction, but don't go north. They go north. That's the direction of the unknown. So no one can explore it. So that is where you need to explore the calcified, frozen. So this would, I would say, has something to do with the inferior function. But that's just that doesn't really help for somebody to say has to do with the inferior function. Well, what in the hell is that? But it has something to do with the unconscious part of ourselves, that is undervalued, whatever that is. In my case, it's sensation, and I think that, Gary, you were too.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, see, the part of me that is unconscious is the sensation function.
Yeah,
So
me too.
this is why I can't come down to the earth. This is why I'm always, my feet are never on the ground. So anyway, then now let's go to the ponds and the gardens and the turtles. Okay. Now, see, we're just starting on this, Tim. I mean, I'm telling you, this is a dream I would spend 2 or 3 days on, and it would be, because you don't know where the gold is yet. We're getting some clues, but I don't know where it is yet. Okay, so now we go into the turtles in the ponds. So what is a turtle? Okay, a turtle, you have both turtles and tortoises. So a turtle and a tortoise, or any reptile or serpent or dragon, has to do with the unconscious that has not been made conscious yet. Okay, so this is the this is actually Hermes Mercurius before he's conscious. So I mean, this is the being that is going to be the redeemer at some point, but we don't know it yet. So, but now, what is special about a turtle? Okay, a turtle is a animal. At least the turtles are animals that are both of the dry land and of the water. And they are very quiet, almost mute. They're very ancient. They're very, very ancient. They live in their own shells. I mean, their protection is their own shell. They are very unusual. I mean, like a snake is very unusual with no limbs. Well, turtle is very unusual. I mean, who would ever imagine a turtle? I mean, it's a very odd being. Now the tortoises resemble almost a moving tree. I mean, they're almost a tree that's alive. So now, typically, when you're dreaming about something this a form of life, a form of the instincts, a form of the living world that is nature. Okay, so anytime the animals are near, this is something Jung says. Anytime the animals are near, the instincts are near. And I used to have these beautiful dreams where I'd be sitting outside at night sleeping, and I'd wake up and there'd be a circle of caribou standing around me, looking at me, and it was just beautiful. But I mean, the instincts, are is very closely related to the archetypes. Jung says the archetypes are in the ultraviolet section of archetype means primal imprint. That's the original print. The original print that was put on us is the archetypes. Well, the instincts are also imprinted on us, but the instincts tend to be more involved with the mute world of nature, where the archetypes are involved with the expressive, almost aspects of music and art and lyrical things, and meaning. Okay, but yet they both come from the same place, which is, you could say, the DNA, or from the deep ground, or from the deep unconscious. So the turtles are representatives of that world, but they're very special representatives. And so are the tortoises. And now there are several ponds like this. So there's several ponds. Now the pond is a body of water. It's the body of water represents the depths. It's always interesting to say, well, what's the difference between a lake, a sea, and a pond? Okay, they're all bodies of water, but they have different qualities. Okay, the pond is going to be closer to a it's rich with life of the forest. Okay, usually. I mean, if you're talking about, I don't know if you're talking about a forest pond, but it seems to be almost tight in. It's full of fallen trees, and the turtles come up on the trees and sit on it in the sun, So anyway, that to me would represent, it seems to, and the fact that the tortoises look like trees, this is the unconscious of the vegetative world, or the rooted world. It's not, let's say, the sea. What's the sea? I mean, that's just this vast depths with no qualities, no differentiations. In a pond, it's more differentiations. It's some of it's has separated into parts, like turtles, and tortoises, and other little things. So anyway, then we get to the man sleeping in the shell. Okay, so the man sleeping in the shell. Okay, I often have dreams of men sleeping, or someone sleeping in a hollow log or a hollow tree. In fact, they're they had a hole in a limb, and his face is coming out of it. So he lives at the tree limb, and the only part of him that you can see is his face. So here's a man that sleeps in the shell. He almost looks like a statue, because when you touch him, he comes alive, and it's startling. So and it's startling, I think, because he was waiting for you. And because he immediately comes into life, and then he suddenly wants to tell you all about this place, and he's telling you about the ponds in the other with the other things. Now, this guy is not the weird owner of the place, who would tend to be a little more of a higher figure. A figure of this one who sleeps in the shell is going to be closer to being a shadow figure. So Now he's also, as the shadow figure, he's talking about the defiling of the. Now, what is it? The other ponds have oil-rich ground that the turtles can't live in, or who can't live in it?
My sense is that that there's oil underneath the landscape
Hmm.
that kind of poisons the
Poisons the
natural.
pond. But
Yeah.
that's what fascinates the shadow are the ponds that are poisoned,
Yeah, and he thinks
because
he can make money.
yeah, there is um, a profit in the poisoning, you know. So you're the shadow aspect, and remember, this has got to be an aspect of you. It's not a let's just assume for now that it has to do with us, not with the outer world. There is an aspect of us that who is fascinated by profiting on things that poison our pond. I mean, like, for instance, if I had this dream and I thought this was my shadow, I would think, I could come up with any number of things I do that poison my ponds, and sort of defile them, and this is the shadow aspect of myself that is not allowing that first pond you saw is almost the anticipation of wholeness. It's this is the correct state. The second pond is the one that's defiled by our ego, and it's of course, what is the ego doing? It's always looking for what will enrich the ego. Now, is the first pond like that? No, the first pond's not like that. First pond is one where things are in balance, and the ego doesn't have any say there. Okay. The second pond is the one where ego and the shadow are finding things that are more interest to them. So now, I'm just saying that you could. I know a lot of people that would want to make this a collective dream, and it certainly can be done that way. But then it'd be a cultural dream. But I think if the object, or say the task at hand, is to is humbling, is to the dreams are here to humble us, and to wake us up. I mean, this dream I had that God is trying to stir you in every way you can be stirred. He's trying to shake you up every single way you can shake. Why? Because he wants to wake you up. And what does he want you to do? I'm not really sure. I mean, the only thing I can think of is that how do I become more of a son of Eros? How do I become more of a son of the rooted world? How do I become a servant of the rooted world, and a servant of Eros, and a servant of the feminine? I mean, I think that's what's being asked. Now, as far as this aspect here, I mean, you've been shown two ponds. The first pond is the one that is. So let's start with the beginning. You're in the grand estate, seems to be owned by a Merlin figure. Some aspects of this estate are calcified and frozen. So these are and they cannot be explored. So these are the parts of us that are the redeeming thing, but we're unconscious of them. The other side is the one that's more friendly to the conscious attitude. It's warmer. We'll have dinner there. The ones that are calcified and frozen and can't be explored are the ones that are more related to the non-ego. Okay, so the ego is not familiar with those. So they, as far as the ego is concerned, they're calcified and frozen and can't be explored. So that's the first aspect of the dream, and that one I think you can kind of segment, and try to just try to identify. I mean, I would try to amplify more what can't be explored, what's friendly to the ego, and where there's dinner being served. Then you go to the second part of it, which is the almost the central. It almost possibly could be the sacred place in the garden estate. I mean, this may be, the place of wisdom, aware of the center. It's the center of that place, and who are the informing beings of that place? They're turtles and tortoises, and the feminine pond, which is this nature pond. So we're looking at that. Okay, so first we've seen which aspects of us are frozen and calcified. Secondly, we see the central place. Third, we see the ego pond, or the pond of the conscious attitude.
So it seems really parallel, the calcified house and the second pond with this treasure that is poisonous underneath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and see, this is kind of now the I would say, what do you think about there's a treasure underneath, or there's just a poison underneath that's worth something to the ego?
So, worth something to the ego, because
Yes.
it feels to me like oil is something you want to leave alone in nature.
Yes.
As soon as you tap into it, it becomes poisonous to the rest of nature. But the ego can make money out of it. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
So if the ego taps down into the treasure, the rest of nature
Yes.
is poisoned.
So we've kind of seen there's three aspects of this dream. Okay. And we kind of let's just say number one is the parts, the houses that can be explored and the houses that can't be explored. And so the houses that can be explored that are more friendly to ego are warmer and dinner is served. The second ones are not friendly to ego and can't be explored. So that means they need to be explored. And then the center, and it's also in the center of the dream, is the place of the tortoises and the turtles. And they are the nascent or the unborn third thing. These are what could be transformed, these nature beings, into the redeeming thing. Now remember, in all fairy tales, the conscious attitude, the son of the king, always fails. The one who succeeds is the fool, the one who's not appreciated by the conscious attitude. The king thinks he's a fool, or the conscious world thinks he's a fool. And how does he succeed? Through animal helpers. So his helpers, or his redeeming, what redeems, or what allows him to succeed, and also lifts the curse and cures the fault, is the instinctive and the archetypal world. Okay. Now, often the archetypes aren't going to call themselves archetypes. They're going to appear in animal form. So they're just representing the instinctive world. So I would say the middle part of the dream is how you is a possibility of how the frozen things can be explored. You know, I mean, and what method you would use to do that. You know, because the frozen calcified things need to be unfrozen, uncalcified, and we need to become conscious of them. Okay. So then the third part of the dream, this is ego land. You know, I think it's saying that first of all, what are the depths of the ego world? There aren't any. You know, it's 10 miles wide and 3 inches deep. You know, I mean, and what is valued in there is what poisons the redeeming thing. And also, since you don't have the redeeming thing because it's been poisoned, now you can't freeze the calcified things that need to be uncalcified. And remember, calcified often means that lime or some kind of accretion has grown upon it because it's been so long neglected. Like if you go to into a old crypt in Rome, and they had a metal door there. It's just going to have become like, you can still kind of see the metal door, but it's just become calcified. It's just calcified means to turn into rock. It means it's turning into a fossil, or something that is a remnant of what it used to be, but is no longer what it used to be. Now it's a rock. It's a calcified. So in other words, I think the middle part of your dream is the redeeming thing of the first part. The third part is where we really live. This is where we're residing now currently. That what the ego values is what poisons the middle world, the redeeming world. Now that's how I would analyze it, but or if it was my dream. But what do you think, Tim? You're very silent, so I think you're resisting.
Well, I'm so fascinated with that idea that what the ego really wants, this treasure that lies underneath the earth, is really something that is poisonous to the rest of nature.
Yes.
And you look at this in the energy industry today, it's exactly the same thing. If we pump all the oil and we burn that, we're going to kill ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so my thought at the end of the dream that I did not express to this guy was, by the time you pull the oil out, the market is going to be gone.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Yeah. So there's the dream ego is sort of recognizing the issue here. Now, the issue here too now is actually I think let's just assume for now that it applies to ourselves. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't apply to the other one, but let's just assume that it does apply to ourselves. So then I would say that in that case, it's very analogous to what the oil companies are doing, but it's happening in ourselves, is that the conscious attitude is killing nature within ourselves. The conscious attitude, and boy, I don't know about you guys, but that's sure true in my life. I find, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a question on this. So, we're looking at doing a dream amplification here. And I was really enamored with your description of what you do in your active imagination, mm-hmm. like where you do this journey and like you become you become the pond or you become the stream. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's actually that's actually embodied imagination. And there's a big difference between active imagination and embodied imagination, because in embodied imagination, what you're trying to do is, you have this other thing, whether it's a person or, like a natural thing like a stream. You're looking at your consciousness, but you're becoming that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of an embodiment. So I guess, what I was wondering about for Tim's dream is like, to help amplify it, because what we've got right now is, sort of what we look at as like almost like universal symbols while you're going through this. But what could also maybe help is if Tim could go to, the man in the shell.
The man in the
And
shell. That would be a good,
yeah,
because
yeah, if you
I
could,
think you're really talking to your shadow. I
yeah.
really do.
So
And
if you could
ask him
go
if
to
he's a shadow.
the man in the shell and kind of look at his position and, almost begin to feel like his position, how does he look, and start to feel that. And then, as you're kind of looking at him and stuff, what you want to happen is it's like a transference will happen. So first you just want to get into his posture, and and maybe, and how his expression, anything that you can see about him. But if you can get to where you're embodying him, then you can kind of get into his emotions and his feelings, and you might get additional, information, additional amplification.
Well, see, what I would do is I would go in. I am the man in the shell.
Exactly,
And I'm
exactly.
actually Tim. So now I'm Tim, but I'm in my active imagination. I'm imagining I'm the man in the shell, looking at myself. Okay.
Mhm.
What would I, the man in the shell, say to Tim? Now, when you start out with this, it's going to be a little forced. But if you keep doing it, it's going to stop being a little forced, and it's going to be a little more natural. And the whole idea here, it's the same with automatic writing. It's to awaken the imaginal worlds within us. And there are sometimes they are going to just absolutely, you're going to hear the voice. So you don't even have to do this. And this is what Barbara Hanna called the sudden deepening, but the whole idea is when you start the active imagination, this is for all of us kind of a beginners. And one thing I'm finding that, I seriously had Jungian analysts look at my dreams for 14 years. I right now, no analyst could keep up with what I'm doing in active imagination. I mean, my wife actually found a Jungian analyst that we can run through our health insurance. But I'm not going to do it because I'm just, this is working. So what I would do is exactly what Gary described. I would I would go through this whole dream with some figure, and I mean I would ask the questions that I have, relevant questions that I have, like I would ask about each aspect, why are there parts of this garden estate that are can't be explored and are calcified and frozen? Now I'm asking a figure that I've chosen in the active imagination. Choose anybody, and actually they'll eventually morph into who they really are. But you can start out with anybody. So now I'm the great mother, okay, and I'm sitting on the earth in my field of flowers with my bees around me, my alpine field, and with the lunar disk around me. And I'm seeing me standing there. Okay, now I answer. question. Okay. Then I come back to me. Now I see her as the being sitting on the ground with the lunar disc behind her. I ask her another question. Now the whole idea is, as you start to do this, they awaken. I'm telling you, this is the whole idea, is to make these figures real, lending them your ego awareness. Well, what's better than lending an ego awareness is to go inside them and look at yourself, and talk to yourself. I mean, that's lending ego awareness. And I think that's what Jung meant when he said his anima couldn't speak, so he lent her his voice. I mean, he just basically said, I'm looking at myself, and here's what the anima says. Now, this is the way to get started in envisioning, I think, that for the inexperienced. Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say I wanted to share the couple of thoughts I had on Timmy's dream.
Definitely.
One, I just kind of noticed there being a theme of opposites there, with a lake that was pristine and a lake that was
there you go,
sullied by oil, coupled with the house that was, you could say, like a fixed house and a volatile
there
house.
You go.
Also, my thought on the man in the shell was it was like he was sleeping in the shell at first, correct?
Yes.
So to me, it seemed like it was someone that was, and they're in a shell, they're like in a natural thing. So they're unconscious and unaware that they are within nature. They're not conscious to their relationship with nature and how it's holding them and protecting them.
He lives in a shell like the turtle.
Yeah.
He lives in a shell. That's an expression.
Right, exactly. Like he's withdrawn into himself.
Yeah, he's isolated
right.
from our world.
Yeah, not connected. Yeah, not connected with the outside world yet. Kind of has a connection there with nature, being that he's within it itself. So I just want to share that.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is beautiful. I mean, don't you think that's a really, now this is amplifying dreams here. He lives in a shell. Okay, now you've got the fixed houses, which he means like they would be the ones that, and then you got the volatile houses. So you got the ones that are solidified and calcified. Then you have the ones that are a little more spiritual and warm and eros, where friendlier to the ego. But there's those two opposites. Now you contrast these with the two ponds. You've got the one pond that is just this almost Eden-like pond, and where the animals all there live in shells, but there's a land one that never leaves the land. It looks like trees. So you've got the turtle that can go under the water and up on the earth. And then you've got the tree that can walk. So you've got the rooted being that can move on the earth. So this is the turtle that almost looks exactly like the trees around it. So this is a rooted thing that can move. And the other animal that lives in a shell is the one that can go under the depths and up into the surface. So it goes up and down. It's not quite like a duck. I mean, or say a duck. A duck goes in the water, goes on the land, and can fly above it. But the turtle doesn't fly above, but it has the it's a being that goes both on water and there's a name for that. Okay, what is it? Amphibian. Yeah, it's an amphibian. Okay, and so that's the contrast with this other world that is tended by the man who lives in the shell. Okay, the man if you take that literally, the man who lives in the shell, that means a man who is isolated from the richness of life. He lives in his own shell, so he is in a dead end, he's
Only is he in a dead end, but he's also asleep.
yeah, he's asleep in a dead end. In other words, he's asleep and he lives in a shell. If you live in a shell, that typically means there's somebody that doesn't, I mean, you know what it means, doesn't get out much, knows nothing outside his little, thing. So he sleeps in and lives in a shell, blinks awake, and he's very voluble and wants to talk a lot about the richness that he's found, and yet it's not really richness to the dream ego, to Tim. It's something horrifying,
I'm thinking about these
Yeah.
three-tailed creatures. The
Yes.
first one is the turtle that's mostly under the water.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is the tortoise that has the
Looks like a
mushroom.
tree.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of the tortoise or the mushroom as being something that transforms death into life.
Yeah. Okay. So this was
And then
actually the
one,
shell of a mushroom.
Yeah. And then the third one is the consciousness that is encased in the shell and is trying to come alive,
Mm-hmm.
and has more capacity than the other two,
Mm-hmm.
but is not fully alive yet.
Yes.
Wait,
But
that's the man. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Man in the shell. Because the thing I thought interesting about the man in the shell is that he actually has a view of other worlds, and the other worlds are threatened. The other worlds also have a positive potential. It's just that, they need not to be explored for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, as I say, Tim, is a very rich dream. I mean, the three aspects to me all have, at least the first two, have what I would call, it's an overused term, but, numinous. I mean, it is, numinous means the other beckons, the other world calls to us. And we are fascinated that this magical world is calling to us. That's what I think it means, when they say that. So both of these first parts have that aspect. The first one is the fascination of this garden estate, first of all, which is non-ordinary reality. And the fact that there is this mysterious place that you can explore, and then the second one is the mystery of the wisdom of the pond and of the turtles, and then the third one is sort of the clinker or the clunker in the dream, which is the shadow is describing a state which is horrifying to the dream ego, and so this is kind of the is the counter to this other aspect. So if I was to draw a conclusion from this dream, or something, some moral to the story, you would want to state it almost like a fairy tale. So you'd say something like, well, first of all, there's no resolution. So you can't really say there's a resolution. A lot of dreams just don't have resolutions. But this has really got three aspects, but they're all, the first one is asking for an answer. because there's a thing in here that needs to be explored that isn't explored. The second one is describing a state of wholeness. And it's a very particular state of wholeness that has to do with the wisdom of these of the turtles. So what does the turtle say? You know, who's the turtle to me? You know, the third one is sort of so the first one is there's something to be explored that needs to be explored. The second one is this is the thing that you can explore it with. The third thing is this is why you won't do it.
But, you know, like, just like you were describing at the outset, Craig, like with what you do with your dreams, you know, but afterwards you kind of go through with active imagination and try to, you know, embody each of these characters and become part of each of these things. Like this would be like definitely a dream, you know, spending quite a bit of additional time on, you know, Tim, and working through it yourself with active imagination.
Yeah, and when you do that, I'll tell you, if you know, if it starts out, you're so fumbly when you start doing active imagination. You're so clumsy, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And I still sometimes, you know, well, I'm not that great at it yet, but I feel fumbly. But, you know, this morning I felt very fumbly. And I thought, what's going wrong here? But it turned out that this was great revelation, you know? I mean, the fact that I was stumbling, am I just too tired to do this or what? You know, because I'm just floating up in the air. Well, you need the anima to bring you down to the earth, you know? And then I finally get down there, and that was when I was saying, I do this pretty often though. I have the forest look at me and tell me why I'm staying on the ridge waiting to go down, what it has to say to me, you know. But I mean, this is a way to wake these things up, and I think it's a very legitimate way to do it too. When you're doing visioning, okay, when you're doing that, this is just pure visioning. It's not, and I only do 15 minutes of it, so it's not forever. But you know, I'm fine. You know, I set a timer and it goes, bing bong. You know, I find that's coming sooner and sooner. And you know, actually, then I'll go a couple minutes behind because there's some people I want to talk to first before, and I ran out of time. You know, and so that actually the reason you do that first is just basically to quiet the mind to do the written automatic writing dialogues. But while you're at it, why don't you do a little of this visioning thing, you know? And it's great. I mean, I'm telling you. Now, it again, you don't have to be a super talent at it. I mean, the only thing is, you know, you want to start somewhere and you want to move somewhere. So you know, nobody's going to tell you where to move. So you decide, well, I want to go, you know, to the top of a mountain or something. And then you'll go to the top of the mountain. And maybe a couple times that'll work and you'll actually get to the top of the mountain. The next time, it won't let you go there. I mean, you'll start to walk and you're going to find suddenly, woo, you're over here. You know, so that's when the sudden deepening happens. You know, because what I used to do is I used to go down in to the water, and then I'd come up through a cave, and I'd go up through the cave. And I imagine it was Lascaux, you know, and then I'd come out and try to find figures out there, you know, and pretty soon, one time, I mean, just doing this over and over, and I got pretty good at it, used to it. And then suddenly, it was like I was going down a road real fast, and I came into the alpine meadow, and that's where I saw this woman in blue with the moon disc behind her, you know, just a flash, you know. But anyway, pardon me?
I think your advice, Craig, about doing like the half-hour meditation first is really good. I find I can't even begin to do it unless I, you know, have like half-hour meditation and then try it. And I'm
Yeah.
not very good at it, but
No, I mean, no one is, but I mean, you still do it.
yeah.
I just say, hell with it. I'm going to do it anyway. I do 15 minutes of this meditation, then 30 minutes of the dialogue because, I actually write them out. So I usually can write about maybe 2.5 pages, in 30 minutes of just question and answers. What are you going to talk about? Well, usually I just talk about what I saw, if I saw any glimpses or anything was unusual in the visioning aspect. Like, why am I up in the air? I don't even remember what I said, but
Well, you guys, this has been really, really helpful. I really appreciate it.
yeah,
And
Yeah,
Gary,
it was a really interesting dream.
yeah, it
Yeah.
sure is.
well, yeah. I mean, and see, this is just a way to do it. It's not the way, but I mean, you kind of see. I guess the one thing I say about these is, if you noticed, we're treating them like a fairy tale or like I mean, in a good way. I mean, in other words, we're restating it as if it is a story of a magical world, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, or whatever. But then we're trying to draw out the aspects of that didn't you feel? I mean, I felt a little bit of a thrill, during the process, in certain parts of it,
Yeah.
Now I really do feel that, and when I would do this when I do this with my own dreams, I really started calling it the blessed hour because I didn't think there was anything I did in my other part of my life, where I felt more like this was the most real part of me. I mean, I felt a great sense of a mysterious, I do feel a great sense of a mysterious healing. I don't, not now, again, the gates of paradise never open, but you're developing one little stone that you put in the temple you're building on the rock, so I mean, that's one little stone, and as you're building up these stones, of course, it never stops humbling you. I mean, you heard what she said, you artificial son of a gun, there's nothing real about you. I mean, you have no idea how profound this work is. Well, I do like to hear that. I mean, that's good for me, because now I'm wondering, well, what else is there? I mean, so now I'm trying to find out what it is that is in my life that's so artificial. Why am I so alien to the world of nature and to the world of eros, and like, well, Marie Louise von Franz, I was hearing her the other day, she did all her writing. She had her own stone tower, and she said she couldn't do writing anywhere else because, there was no phone, there was no electricity, there was no anything. I mean, it's deep in nature. And she used to say, for Europeans, what's much more healing to them is a walk in nature than samadhi, the deep Zen meditation, or yoga or something. She thought it was that we need to be closer to Pan. We need to be closer to personified beings in the nature world.
Right.
So anyway, Charles, are you or Gary, you're gonna bring us some good dreams?
I would like to share one.
Yes, please. Sure. We got about 10 minutes or so, but go ahead.
Okay. I guess I will go into one that's not super crazy then.
Well, we're going to pick it up next time too.
Okay.
Or we can pick it up tomorrow at 10 a.m. if you want to.
Okay.
Come stop in.
All right. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. So I was in a nice bedroom figuring out what to wear. My friend Michael and his friends were outside waiting for me. And Michael is a professional artist. He's an animator. I was excited because I hadn't seen Michael in so long and I wanted to meet his friends. I searched through a large pile of shirts to find the right one, and I noticed a very colorful and beautiful shirt that I really liked, took note of it, and put it back into the pile to continue searching for other shirts I might like. But after a minute of searching still, I dug back to find this original shirt, but could not locate it. I became very angry and started yelling and screaming.
Mhm. Okay, well now this one, I would say that you are going out with someone who is connected with with the creative, you know. So you're going to the house of the creative, and you want to meet the friends of the master of the house of the creative. So you're really going to see a figure, I would say, of the self. I mean, from the center, and you want to meet his friends. So it's very important now that you are accepted by these people. So you're looking for a shirt that is full of libidinal energy, or something that would be pleasing to the house of the creative. You know, you find one and you set it aside, but you just want to review what else you have. Okay. So it's kind of like it could be a missed opportunity. Okay. So you can't find anything better. So you go back to look for the other one. It's missing.
It seems like an attitude or something.
Yes. I mean, usually a shirt has something to do with a persona, but I think the idea here is the attitude that you're going to take when you're going to a magical place. This is going to be the house of the creative, the master of the creative, and his friends. You're going to go meet them, okay? And yet there is possibly a key to get in the door, and the key to get in the door is the right attitude, and it's the right, which is the shirt. You know, there was one shirt that, because of its the fact that it was energetic at the same level as the house of creative, seemed like a key that would unlock the door, and yet um, it's suddenly gone. So now there's a feeling in the dream ego, I'm not going to really be able to unlock the door. See, it's not. You said you were anxious not only to meet Michael, who is the artist, but also the friends of the person who is acquainted with it, at least the house of the creative. Okay, now I may have lost the key to that door, you know, so I've missed the chance. I mean, I that's just a stab in
Right.
the heart.
Right. Oh, yeah. And I just to reiterate, yeah, I become indescribably angry
Yeah,
at the losing of this shirt.
the losing of the key. I mean, the real problem was I no longer have the appropriate key to unlock this door. And now what do I do? Everything I have now is inappropriate, you know? So now you see, that was kind of where you turn it into a fairy tale a little bit. Okay. Now, I'll tell you, really, is just, what Gary was saying, and it is just so much, like I'm saying, as far as doing this instead of doing analysis. You might want to have both so you know what the two are, but nothing compares to this. I mean, I really do call it the blessed hour. Now, the whole thing is, if you want to really get serious with this, I'm telling you, if I stop doing active imagination, fucking mad. They are pissed off, and they just tell me, are you serious about this or not? I mean, I ask for forgiveness, after I miss a couple of days, but the whole idea is when you find that they're so angry about it, and then you start to find the power of it, and the real power I found in it is when I started to do the embodiment that Gary's talking about. That was where it really came alive, because now it's not me just groping in the dark. I can actually start a dialogue in the imaginal world, and it wakes these beings up. Not just the beings I meet, the valley of trees, the trees, the river that runs through it wakes up. So the whole landscape has come alive. Well, anyway, we'll have if anybody's interested, tomorrow at 10 a.m. will just be, I think you'll love The Ally by Jeffrey Raff. I mean, this is a fabulous introduction to this work too. So, but then I'm going to do this every Friday at 7 a.m. till I die of the coronavirus. So I'll be here if nobody else is. Okay, well, I'll hopefully see some of you guys or all of you guys tomorrow then.
Yeah, I'll try to make it tomorrow next time.
Okay, just for a little bit, Charles, and I think it's good to do a dream or two in those sessions too, if everybody has a little dream,
All right, thank you.
Okay, see you
Sounds
guys
good.
later. Thanks so
All right.
much.
See ya.
Bye, Gary, Tim,
Bye.
Charles.